She's the kid who came from nowhere, taking the music world by storm.
Girl did good!
Rarely has a British performer had such a meteoric rise as Adele Laurie Blue Adkins.
There's a fire starting in my heart.
First time you hear that song, you just kind of know that, yes, you're going to be hearing this one a lot, and not necessarily from Adele. It's going to be on X Factor, American Idol, any of the myriad singer shows that are on TV.
From the moment I heard it, I thought this is going to be absolutely massive.
Kids on playgrounds were singing it, and so it's clearly had this kind of massive impact and just popularity.
Still in her early 20s, Adele is now a music legend right around the world, and her unlikely image has cut across stereotypes of divas everywhere. She has sold millions of records globally and continues to churn out heartfelt ballads with an aching emotion in her voice that belies her tender years. So what spurs this young singer on? Still something of an enigma, what is Adele really like?
The overall feeling about Adele is that she is just a normal, slightly bolshy, a bit stroppy girl from London who, if you catch her on a good day, she'll probably be really bubbly and confident and have a laugh with you, get drunk with you down the pub, but equally could be in a bit of a mood and might not want to talk to you that day. And that just encompasses her raw quality. I think she's just a real girl, and she doesn't ever pretend that she's anything else.
Right now, the girl who doesn't pretend to be anything else has got the world at her feet. 2012 has been a spectacular year for Adele. Still only 23, already this year she has swept the Grammys and Brit Awards, emerging as the most dazzling new talent of the decade.
I can't tell you how I feel about it. It's been the most life-changing year.
Her extraordinary gift as a singer-songwriter has made her one of the biggest divas in music.
No, I'm a diva with people I work with, not people I don't know. So I'll always be lovely to you and people that come up to me.
I think Adele is as down-to-earth and grounded as she does appear to be, in great part because of the fact that she has such a large extended family, something like 33 very close family members. And I think in addition to her close relationship with her mom, they really do keep her in check. They don't let her forget who she is or her humble beginnings. And from what I've seen, she has no wish to forget those things.
She really kind of strays from a lot of the trappings of celebrity. She doesn't like to go to Tao's or Nobu or any of celebrity restaurants, where the idea of getting a meal is put behind being out and seen and to see and to be seen.
She doesn't do many interviews. She really keeps herself to herself. When she does do interviews, she talks about the fact that her life is about hanging out with her friends in the pub. She doesn't want to go to the gym. She really doesn't want to perform big festivals because it's just too many crowds, and she'd just rather be with her mates. And I think she's managed to stay very, very grounded.
Despite all her newfound fame, it's alleged that Adele still suffers from stage fright before performing on stage.
She's very rarely on TV doing TV shows. She hasn't got a massive internet presence either. She doesn't like putting her life out there other than in her music. I heard one story that she actually needed a hypnotist before a gig to actually help her calm her nerves.
I get really nervous before I go on. Like last night in Brussels, I had a gig and I was sick. I actually puked into the bin because I was so nervous. But as soon as I get on stage, I'm fine, I love it.
I met Adele in 2010. I met her before we both were on a live talk show in the UK. And we chatted a bit backstage. She's very friendly. She was giving out her number to people, call me, like a normal person would do. But what struck me the most is it's a very soft-spoken, quietly confident young woman, not flashy. She has a cackling laugh, which she, will bust out in, very, very sweet, but not a showman, not oozing X Factor, oozing charisma. I think her talent is there. It's just raw, it is what it is. But she's not a flashy pop star who automatically, kind of lights up the room the way perhaps Justin Timberlake or Beyonce might do. What she has is unique.
I'm a soul singer, and all my songs are about heartbreak and love. Because I don't like writing songs when I'm happy. I'd rather be out being happy.
So how did it all begin for this young British singer? She was born Adele Laurie Blue Atkins in Tottenham, London on the 5th of May 1988. She grew up with her single mother Penny, who gave birth to her when she was only 18. Penny's partner Mark Evans left home when Adele was 3. He has said that he was battling alcoholism at the time.
Adele was the only child of a very young single mom who had her in her teens. She had a very difficult upbringing in the sense that they never really had money for anything. She went to some rough schools, especially in the early years, but a lot of love and a lot of attention from her very proud mom.
Her mother is, kind of a free spirit, someone who's, she does like freelance furniture making, a masseuse, never a typical 9-to-5er. I think that really kind of set the scene for what Adele did.
She didn't really know her biological father. All she says about him was that he was a big Welsh guy and he worked on ships, but that was fine by me. So I don't think she was ever affected by the lack of a fatherhood figure in her life. In fact, her mum was incredibly supportive of her and almost her biggest fan from day one.
I think in many ways, especially because they didn't have a lot of money, they always felt like they were in it together. And her mom always gave her daughter a sense of certainty that she was worth something, that she was talented, and she was special.
Being an only child had a huge impact on Adele.
She was very bolshy when she was a kind of young girl. She said probably because her mum, she was an only child and her mum really looked after her, so it meant that Adele would be very opinionated and was almost encouraged to be so.
Adele has an incredibly close relationship with her mom, and I think in many ways they kind of grew up together. What's interesting about it is it seems to be becoming a more common dynamic amongst young pop stars. For example, Justin Bieber also has a very young mother who was a single mom at that time as well, and I wonder if there aren't some parallels in the amount of confidence and individuality and self-worth that these women who pour themselves into their children are actually giving to them.
When she, reached the age of 5, she would be the type to get on tables and, just start singing in the middle of parties, all of which her mother encouraged.
Most kids have jelly ice cream and a clown. If you went to a kid's party and Adele was there, her mum would get her up on that table singing out Gabrielle tunes. And that's helped her be the girl she is today, confident, out there, doesn't take any rubbish from anyone.
The confidence and kind of the maturity beyond her years that Adele has shown, I think can be directly traced back to the amount of attention and time that she got from her mother.
While homesick and working on her most recent album in Malibu, California, Adele specially recorded The Cure's Lovesong, which she dedicated to her mum, Penny.
You make me feel like I am whole again.
Even at primary school, Adele came to the realization that after her mum, her first love would always be music.
Adele, from a very young age, has had a real fascination with song and voices as well. She says that she really paid attention to how people would speak and the tone would change in their language from being angry to being happy, and that's obviously translated into her love of music too.
Even as a little girl, she had some very contemporary British influences.
She said Gabrielle was one of her first, most influential artists, and she tells a funny story about how she loved her so much that she asked her mum to make a sequined eye patch for her, and she actually wore it to school.
She, like, most kids in the 90s, was a big fan of the big pop stars of the era. She talks about how the first songs she learned to sing were songs by the Spice Girls, who were huge in the UK.
Spice Girls, I love them very much. Always wanted to be a Spice Girl. Feel like one today. It's great. They're the reason I wanted to entertain it.
Spice Girls were not just huge for her, as a 10-year-old girl, but, the fact that they were British and, each one had their own sort of personality. I mean, it was just absolutely perfect for someone such as Adele and let her imagination run wild.
Seeing these British women who had become international superstars and this kind of fearless girl power that they embodied became very influential to Adele, and she speaks now about the fact that they really had a big impact on her.
About the time she was 11 years old, they moved to West Norwood, a part of London. It's, described by Adele as being a little bit more urban. In other words, she would be the only, by her measure, the only white girl in her class at the time. She attributes that to her finding out more about, urban artists such as Mary J. Blige and Destiny's Child. So that's really where she starts to develop her interest in music and performance. But the first time she heard Etta James, that's when it was like, okay, I know what I want to do with my life. It's singing.
Adele was in an HMV record store. She really was kind of a misfit at the time, trying to look cool. She looked in a bargain bin and there was an Etta James CD. And she only picked it up because she liked her hair on the album and was going to give it to her hairdresser to say, give me this hairstyle. Anyway, she took it home, listened to it, and at that moment her life was transformed. When she heard Etta singing, when she heard the music, she thought for the first time, this is who I want to be.
West Norwood and London inspired Adele to write what would later become her first record, Hometown Glory.
I've been walking in the same way as I did, and missing out the cracks in the pavement, and tutting my heel and strutting my feet.
What's interesting about it is it kind of sets the stage for what kind of a singer Adele is. She's obviously somebody with a strong sense of locality and regionalism. That sense of pride, that sense of coming from someplace.
Hometown Glory was Adele's first single. A lot of people don't actually know this song, but this is the song that she wrote about West Norwood, which a lot of people would not associate with glory in any way. It's not a glorious neighborhood, but to her it was a very important place, and she wrote a song in honor of that, and that was the song that caught the attention of the record executives who ultimately launched her career.
Oh, my world.
But a major turning point for the young singer came when she went to study at the famous Brit School for Performing Arts.
The Brit School is based in Croydon. It's for young up-and-coming performers, but it's a bit more gritty than your more highbrow schools. It was just really about getting this raw talent from people such as Adele and just letting them evolve and develop into the kind of performers they are today.
This was the same school that Amy Winehouse came out of a few years ahead of Adele. Adele attended the Brit School along with Lionel Lewis and other big UK stars from the R&B and pop scene.
At the Brit School, Adele was initially looking at getting into the development side of recording as opposed to being a performer herself, despite her incredible talent. I personally suspect that may have had something to do with the fact that she didn't look like most of us expect a pop star to look, and like probably a lot of her classmates looked. As part of a class project, however, she recorded 3 songs, which a friend of hers then put on MySpace.
We think of MySpace as really antiquated now because of Facebook and other things, but in the mid-00s, if you were a music artist and you didn't have a big label backing you, MySpace was a legitimate way to be able to build a core audience, to be able to get your name out there. And that's really what got the ball rolling for her.
It was there that she was discovered by XL Recordings, who look after Dizzy Rascal and people like the White Stripes, and they saw her there on the internet performing, completely unproduced, really. She was there as Adele purely was, and that's where they discovered her, aged 18.
XL Records saw the potential in the young 18-year-old and immediately signed her, with a view to creating her first album. But at first, writing didn't come easily to her.
She found it very difficult to write music until she had her first big heartbreak by a boyfriend who cheated on her, absolutely left her devastated. And then all of a sudden she found she had the inspiration to write almost all of her first album, 19. I think she wrote something like 10 songs in 5 weeks. It just came out of her.
For myself, it's for my own peace of mind. I have to write songs because in reality I can't really admit things to myself, so I have to put it in song. Because also, even if you feel really sorry for yourself in a song, it sounds glamorous, so it makes it seem better.
One of my favorite Adele stories is how she wrote the very famous song Chasing Pavements. The story is that she'd actually dumped her cheating boyfriend in a bar and was actually running out of the bar on her way home just in floods of tears. And as she was running, she actually heard the lyrics in her mind for Chasing Pavements. She then stopped and sang and recorded the entire song in her mobile phone.
Adele had found her own unique style of personal songwriting, and in January 2008, 2 weeks ahead of her debut album, 19, she released her smash single, Chasing Pavements. She describes the song as being about all the heartache and all the crap a typical 19-year-old goes through.
Should I give up or should I just keep chasing pavements, even if it leads nowhere?
It's quite a haunting song, really. It was really something that I think anyone that heard it couldn't fail to be moved or to relate it in some way back to an experience of theirs. And I think that's the thing with Adele. You always feel some emotional connection with her songs.
I think for people who hadn't heard Adele before, this was a song that didn't overly dress up, you know, the arrangement, the production. The song focused on her and what she was able to do with her singing. And I think that made a huge impression on people because of its simplicity.
Even if I knew my place, should I leave it there?
You just knew that this voice and this person was quite incredible and was going to be someone whose music would grow and you would grow with them. It wasn't just a one-hit wonder. I think you immediately knew that.
Chasing Pavements spent 4 weeks at number 2 in the UK charts. Her album, 19, was released 2 weeks later and went straight to number 1.
Well, I would say for 19, when she was making that record, it was more of a blue-eyed soul sort of thing. Blue-eyed soul is kind of a loaded term. It's essentially what happens when you know, a white woman sings music that's more associated with, you know, older soul singers or older R&B singers. And, you know, her first album, 19, was really classicist in that sense. It was, you know, Dusty Springfield, it was Etta James, it was, you know, all going back to like the real roots of soul music and R&B.
The buzz around Adele was growing fast, and in February 2008, she became the first recipient of the Brit Awards Critics' Choice.
It's nice to be tipped and to have lots of people thinking I'll do that. It can be a bit hard though sometimes, a lot to live up to, but I'm not that fussed by it. I think there's quite a lot of promising acts for 2008.
Adele was the first person to win the Critics' Choice Award by the Brits. There was a lot of pressure on her, really, and I think she talks about that. And I think for somebody like Adele, she wanted to prove her worth and wanted people to genuinely hear her music and buy into it that way, rather than being told that you're the critics' favourite. And I really think that was totally against anything that Adele believes in. However, within a few months, everyone knew exactly who Adele was, and you can see why she was chosen for that award.
At the awards ceremony, Adele performed live alongside acclaimed Brit music producer Mark Ronson. The two had successfully collaborated on her song, Cold Shoulder. She says of the song, "It's about being cheated on, wishing you were the other girls."
You say it's all in my head, and the things I think just don't make sense.
Adele called on probably the most trendy and cool music producer around, Mark Ronson, to record Cold Shoulder with. Now, this is a guy who'd worked with Amy Winehouse before her and was a very well-known name in the music business. For him to work with Adele was a really clear signal that she was going places.
You breaks me with your cold shoulder. Whenever you look at me, I wish I was her.
Regardless of who he works with, Mark Ronson is at the center, I guess, of what you might want to call like a new R&B, new soul revival. When you want, you know, something that sounds modern, but nonetheless based within the old Motown sound or, you know, Blue-Eyed Soul or Stax, Mark Ronson's been at the center of conversation.
He's a big deal in the music industry. And for Adele to work with him at such a young age and so early on in her career was absolutely fantastic for her.
Now firmly identified as Britain's hottest new act, recognition for Adele's debut album started to roll in. She received an Urban Music Award for Best Jazz Act and nominations for Q Awards Breakthrough Act and Mobo's Best UK Female. She was also shortlisted for the prestigious Mercury Prize Award for her album 19. Adele may have conquered the UK, but America was still waiting. And in 2009, she signed a deal with Columbia Records and XL Recordings. Their aim? To break her into the lucrative US markets.
In 2008, Adele got what was an incredible break, particularly for a British artist. She was signed to Columbia Records, and obviously with the backing of such a mammoth American record company, they wanted to send her off on an American tour, so she was set to embark on a North American tour.
How many British artists, British stars, actually get to go on tour in America within their first year of making it? Not many.
This was her chance to break America. And she completely blew it. At that time, she was madly in love with a boy who she has said was a destructive relationship, which was based a lot on their love of alcohol. Her life was somewhat out of control, and she couldn't bear to be without him. So she decided to cancel her tour, her big break, in order to spend more time with him.
She just went, oh, all right then, but I'll just cancel my American tour. And that's exactly how she is, because her real life and everything around it is more important to her than worldwide acclaim and success. So it's real life comes before her music, which is what ironically makes her music so good.
In many ways, I think this decision has probably been one of the best decisions that she made. Perhaps she made it for the wrong reasons, but what this did was it gave her time to start to adjust to her fame, which was very much on the upswing. She also really cut back on her drinking at that time and really reevaluated who she was. When she eventually did tour the US, she was a much more grounded person than she was if she had continued her tour at that time.
But despite almost sabotaging her own career, fate stepped in to ensure that Adele did crack the American market. Bizarrely, it happened when she made a guest appearance on Saturday Night Live and instantly became an overnight star.
This would be a huge event for Adele regardless, but on this particular episode, the host was the then vice presidential candidate for the Republican Party, Sarah Palin. Now, at that point in time, you could make an argument that Sarah Palin was the biggest celebrity in the United States.
Because Sarah Palin was on that particular show, Saturday Night Live had their best ratings in 14 years. Something like 70 million people tuned in to watch. And all of those people saw Adele, who sang in the musical portion of that show. Now, this would have been booked months and months before. She couldn't have known she was going to be on the same night as the U.S. vice presidential candidate, Sarah Palin.
It couldn't have been a better springboard to fame for Adele.
Next day, after singing Chasing Pavements and Cold Shoulder on the show, her album 19 topped the iTunes chart and Adele was a worldwide star.
In February 2009, 19 went gold in the recording industry, and by July she had sold 2.2 million albums worldwide. But probably the most defining moment in Adele's musical career was when she did the cover version of Bob Dylan's Make You Feel My Love. With its launch, Adele became the hottest thing on the music scene in countries everywhere around the world. But what made her record it?
I love other people's songs, but I don't like covering other people's songs because I never think I can do them just for justice, you know. But I heard that song and I've read the lyrics, and they're the most beautiful lyrics I've ever read or heard or sung, and they just kind of summed up everything that I'd been trying to write in my songs.
When the rain is blowing in your face and the whole world is on your case.
The song that's not from, Dylan's classic 60s or 70s catalog, but really a song he wrote in the late 90s that even he didn't cover. It was really a Billy Joel hit initially. And then Dylan recorded and released his own version a couple months after that. I think in the same year, 97, Garth Brooks had a country hit with the same song. So in a lot of ways, Adele represents this interesting meeting between the folk, the country, the rock world, and she's putting her own spin on it when she does it.
Adele really got people to hear it in a different light, just kind of bringing out the emotional range of that song, which is, the biggest compliment you can pay for anyone doing a cover, where you get to hear the emotions differently.
This is one of the things that I think will allow Adele to have longevity and a long career, is she's an interpreter of songs. And when you can interpret songs and you can kind of make them your own, you're good forever. And Adele, very early on, exhibited that gift that she had for reworking, reinterpreting, re-envisioning a song and giving it a life unto itself.
For a million years to make you feel my love.
You can't help but be moved by it. Even talking about it, it sends shivers down your spine. She's just got this incredible way with her singing that she throws herself into every single word and loses herself in the song, that I think anybody listening or watching her can't help but feel moved by it themselves.
There's a desperation to the way she sings sometimes, where she's pleading with the listener to love her or to receive her, to accept her. The words are, I know you haven't made your mind up yet, but I would never do you wrong. So I think she's pleading with the listener to love her.
When Adele did To Make You Feel My Love, she could have had a lot to lose, but actually I think most reviewers and critics would probably now feel that her version was almost more haunting and more spine-tingling. And there's a whole new generation of people now who will have heard that song and they will probably just think Adele wrote that song because it becomes so synonymous with her.
Adele's acceptance into the American music industry was complete when at the Grammy Awards in 2009, she won Best New Artist and Best Female Pop Vocal Performance.
In 2009, Adele was left shell-shocked because she got 4 Grammy nominations. She was sat there with her mum when she found out and they were just screaming. It completely overwhelmed her, really took her by surprise. To her, it was out of the blue.
She ends up going to the Grammys and she doesn't expect to win at all. And then she wins. She ends up, winning Best New Artist. She wins another Grammy. She's nominated for 4 of them. And she ends up kind of being one of the sensations.
In typical Adele fashion, she came out and went, well, I didn't really want a Grammy, which obviously played out completely wrong because when you read something like that in the press, it sounds like she's really ungrateful. And she said that what she meant, which actually rings very true, by giving an artist so young such a big accolade, it's almost could be damaging to their performances and be a bit of a bad luck curse. So it's like winning an Oscar before you've actually delivered that Oscar-winning performance.
For her, she felt like she might not have earned a Grammy just yet. She really wanted to, establish a career and just be a legacy artist. And, if you win the Grammy the first time out, where do you go from there?
Around the same time, Adele was also nominated for 3 Brit Awards. Her popularity as an artist continued to escalate on both sides of the Atlantic. And back in the UK, she even started receiving fan mail from some very high-profile but unlikely sources.
Thank you.
Adele was getting fans left, right and centre. She was winning awards, and one of the fans happened to be a Member of Parliament, no less than Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister at the time.
In 2009, Gordon Brown sent basically a thank you note to Adele for her music, saying that in these deeply troubling financial times, Adele's music was a light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously, listening to her, he found comforting in some way as he was working out budgets and taking very stressful meetings. But I mean, to imagine a 19-year-old or even 20-year-old getting a letter of thank you from their leader is just an incredible thought.
With her lifestyle changing so drastically, Adele decided to move out from her mum's house for a while, but that didn't last for long.
Adele seems to have a very strong and grounded relationship with her mom, and I think ultimately that's what sets her apart from some of the train wreck pop stars we see out there today.
She's lived with her mum all her life, and then she moved out for a little bit and it all turned to pop.
She had all her credit cards cut off because she forgot to pay them. I think her phone was switched off at one point, and again, she forgot to pay the bill, probably drank too much by her own admission. And I think that she realized at that point that she was unable to cope with the stresses of fame and all the things that went with it, and live on her own and take care of herself at the same time. I think it was a very smart decision on her part to then go back and move in with her mom when she realized she couldn't really handle it on her own. And frankly, who can blame her?
One of the things Adele is said to fear most about the music business is drugs. She says they're everywhere and it frightens her. A close family member is said to have died from a heroin overdose.
The one thing she'll tell you is that she has a very addictive personality. She'll smoke 30 cigarettes in a day. Part of canceling her US tour had to do with drinking. And in her words, drugs are everywhere, particularly cocaine. And she doesn't really want a part of that. I mean, whether it's out of fear or whether it's just a desire to keep her career in check, because I mean, God knows how many people who have reached her level of stardom have been taken out by drugs.
We saw her peer, Amy Winehouse, and kind of what happened when she went down that road. And I think that's definitely a lesson that Adele has learned from. She would have known Amy, and she certainly wouldn't have wanted to follow in those footsteps.
In 2010, Adele received a Grammy nomination for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance for Hometown Glory. But it was the release of her second album, 21, that really blew everyone out of the water. It was an album of astonishing energy and versatility, and consolidated her reputation as one of the music world's most exciting and contemporary artists.
21 represents a very, very big departure from the kind of music she was singing before. I mean, imagine that someone who was singing Chasing Pavements is all of a sudden singing Rolling in the Deep, two songs that have absolutely nothing in common but the voice.
When Adele released 21, I think people were really shocked because you were almost expecting something in a similar vein from an artist such as her. She was so young, you're expecting a follow-on from 19, but 21 was completely different. The influences she took were like something we've never heard before.
The sound of Adele's album 21 is described as classic contemporary roots and country music. It was a result of her experiences touring the American South.
When Adele did her US tour for 19, her bus driver, I guess just kind of wanted to be a cultural attaché, you know, just show her what this part of the country was all about. And at that point, he was playing a lot of old school country music and a lot of like real roots music, like even going further back than Etta James and Dusty Springfield and all that. And she was just taken aback by the honesty and just the raw sound of it. And that's really what the difference, you know, not just in life experience, but musically between 19 and 21.
Although she's still got the same emotions and the same stories of heartbreak running through the album, it's just a completely different sound, and that's what made it so successful.
21 is even more of a throwback into the real roots music, not just like soul R&B, but like the roots of soul and R&B. And it definitely brought it to a broader audience. You know, you could be a country fan, you could be an R&B fan, you can be a soul music fan, just be a pop fan. But 21 is more expansive in terms of, you know, what it collects from.
21 goes #1 in 18 different countries. It ends up selling 2.5 million copies. It's this huge blockbuster success. On top of it, she's working with Rick Rubin. She's going out to Malibu to record. You know, she's got this crack backing band, including James Poyser, who's been in The Roots. All these really talented musicians that are now working with her.
Turning Tables, one of the songs from the album, once again reflects Adele's personal experiences of love and heartbreak.
Close enough to start a war. All that I have is on the floor.
In 2011, her fame really rose exponentially. She became a household name in a lot of countries, especially in America. You know, I recently saw Adele performed in Los Angeles, and the number of A-list celebrities who turned up to Adele's concert in Los Angeles was just incredible. She has become a household name in America and all over the world. 2011 really is the year that Adele's fame went through the stratosphere.
Spearheading this assault on the charts was her first single from 21, Rolling in the Deep, which became a worldwide smash hit. For many, it was the song of the year.
First time you hear that song, you just kind of know that yes, you're going to be hearing this one a lot, and you know, not necessarily from Adele. It's going to be on, you know, X Factor, American Idol, any of the myriad singer shows that are on TV.
From the moment I heard it, I thought this is going to be absolutely massive.
I mean, kids on playgrounds are singing it, and so it's clearly had this kind of massive impact and just popularity.
When you first heard it, you just knew it was going to be a classic. It's almost like the sort of song you can't imagine not being in your life. It's so booming and deep and just really, really refreshingly different as well.
Turn my sorrow into treasure gold. You pay me back in kind and reap just what you sow.
It doesn't sound anything like you'd expect someone like Adele to sing. If you're expecting kind of a jazzy, you know, Etta James number, all of a sudden you've got this, you know, deep South bluegrass singer. It's just not what you'd expect. It almost sounds like a country music song. But, you know, she really pulls it off, and it's become one of the most successful singles she's had to date.
It just has kind of an instant classic feel about it, you know, just the lyrical sentiment and the melody, and just the way it's composed. You could get the feeling that, you know, even though it sounds great in 2011, if it had come out in 1991 and it had come out in 1971, it would still, resonate with the public.
Like all of Adele's music, I think it's like inherently sad. Like her music isn't necessarily like the most joyous or the most uplifting music, but I think it offers a kind of optimism and strength in the face of adversity. And I think that's why it's resonated so much.
I think what is common amongst all Adele songs is there's an emotional component, there's an emotional depth, and there's also this incredible timbre of voice that she manages to make sound gritty and yet angelic at the same time.
But you played it, you played it, you played it, you played it to the beat.
Rolling in the Deep has been critically acclaimed across the globe, reaching #1 in 8 countries, including the US. 21 was also noted for its emotional maturity, with critics claiming that Adele had come a long way from the teenage lyrics of her previous album, 19.
She's got a real maturity way beyond her years. But whereas some artists will sing about relationships, but it's kind of every boy that they've ever been with, hers really takes you on a journey. So the first album, 19, was very much about her first experience of heartbreak and being cheated on, and then 21 was her first genuine love. And I think the emotion that plays out through the whole album, it is like a journey. It's not just little bitty songs about different guys, it's all to do with one guy.
There's an every woman quality about her that I think fans of all ages relate to. I mean, if you look at the people at an Adele concert, you have everyone from 14-year-old girls to, 65-year-old women, because what she's speaking to, heartbreak, getting cheated on, bad relationships, longing for love. These are things that it's a universal emotion.
But it was at the 2011 Brit Awards that she really shone through as an astonishing force to be reckoned with.
Adele, you're performing tonight. Tell us what people can expect.
Well, mine is very stripped back. Everyone else is like pretty epic. I'm on the satellite stage, which is a little stage at the end of the main stage, and I'm just doing Someone Like You, which I did on Jules Holland. David Joseph, who's like chairman of the Brits, saw it and wanted me to do it, which is quite cool to do, because normally I've got to try and channel myself to sing like Rolling in the Deep and stuff, whereas this one I'm just like crying halfway through every time I sing it. Doesn't matter what kind of mood I'm in, so I'll be able to connect with it. But yeah, it's just very black and white, won't be any surprises. There's maybe a little bit of glitter at the end comes down, but that's about as like funky as it gets.
When Adele performed Someone Like You at the Brit Awards, it was like a bomb had dropped. This is a room full of professionals and other famous singers. They were completely blown away by the song and by her performance.
I was actually there on that night, and to see Adele on stage with just a piano was incredible. My heart was racing just listening to it.
You've got all these artists that are performing with lights going off, firework displays, really, really over-the-top performances. Yet there was Adele, stood at the end of the stage, just her, no fancy hair or makeup, and it was all about her voice.
Don't forget me, I beg. I remember you said sometimes it lasts in love, but sometimes it hurts instead.
People go nuts over it. The song, shoots up the digital charts almost immediately after. It's going to turn out to be one of the biggest hits off of this album.
The thing about her singing is she's not histrionic. She'll never really take it too far. She always has a certain grace and restraint. After the performance was over, the host comes out and goes, wow, you can have all the dancers and all the costumes and all the pyrotechnics in the world, but when you have a voice like that, all you need is you and a piano.
It made such a sensation that even the next day on breakfast television, presenters and hosts were still talking about it, playing clips from it.
That was the performance of the night, and it was completely breathtaking.
I even watched it again on YouTube, and just watching it gave me goosebumps because her voice was incredible. I had people texting me into the show saying that song makes me cry.
The song Someone Like You is quite an amazing song, really, because it's so deeply personal to her. However, anyone listening to it can really relate to it because it's about losing someone in your life and never being able to get over them. So the haunting quality of it is partly to do with her voice, it's partly to do with the lyrics themselves. I think when you listen to it, you lose yourself in it and you feel quite connected to her and to that song.
Adele has had, a year where she's been at the top of the charts the whole time. Now, at a certain point, Adele had 2 albums in the top 5, 2 songs in the top 5. And the last living artist to do that was the Beatles, 40 to 50 years ago. I think one of the biggest things for Adele, just as an artist, was a few months after her album came out, Lady Gaga put out her album Born This Way. And while Lady Gaga's album notoriously underperformed, Adele's just kept going. When we look back on this past year and think, well, whose year was it? It's going to be Adele's year.
To promote the album, Adele embarked upon the Adele Live Tour. The tour proved a massive success with the entire North American leg sold out. And it compounded her status as a legendary live performer.
No matter where Adele goes as a live performer, it always seems that she gets these effusive reviews that you'll see from critics in the next day in the newspaper. Recently, she played at the Greek Theater in LA, and I don't know anyone who had a bad thing to say about it. And what struck a lot of people about it was how unforced it felt.
For her, it's just like kind of a soul that you get from her. And I think a lot of people, see her on stage and just be like, that is a beautiful voice coming from someone they can relate to. People look at her and they see someone singing their own feelings and pain.
I managed to catch Adele live earlier on this year, not only at the Brit Awards, but also at another event. And the one thing that really stood out for me was the clarity of her voice. It sounds strange, but you listen to an album and it's worked on in a studio, and then you listen to them live and you think, oh yeah, you could probably allow for some defects in the voice, something a little bit different because they've tweaked it in the studio. No difference from hearing her on an album to hearing her live. Her voice is that good.
There's an ache in it, there's a longing, there's a rawness, an emotion. And I think the reason people get goosebumps when they listen to her, they start to cry, is that she touches on something so real. There isn't the artifice or the vocal acrobatics of someone like Mariah Carey.
She's able to kind of bring this tornado gale force of just emotion that overwhelms people. And they just feel it very strongly the moment they hear her sing.
It's not only the emotional brilliance of her vocal delivery that makes Adele special. Her writing has also set her apart from her many peers.
One of the special things about Adele is that she writes most of her own songs. If you look at the other singers who are at her stature, they have armies of songwriters delivering material for her. But on these first 2 albums, most of her biggest songs are songs that she wrote herself.
What makes Adele special to me is the lyrics, really. She has got an amazing voice, and yeah, it's all very good having an amazing voice, but Adele puts heart, she puts soul, she puts feelings into the lyrics of her song, and they're very relatable. It doesn't matter if you're a girl or a guy, you've been through heartache and you can hear what Adele's been through and you can put it into your own life.
She's also very vulnerable and human in a way that you don't necessarily see with other artists who have these kind of fairy tale lives that have never really encountered much conflict.
Adele has also been very outspoken about her body image. Fashion designer Karl Lagerfeld recently described her as a little too fat, a comment which caused outrage amongst her many fans.
She has refused to conform to the very pin-thin, stick insect body image that we see virtually amongst all other pop stars. Adele is a very solid British size 14 to 16, American size 10 to 12. This may be the size of a normal woman, but this is not the size of a normal pop star, which is probably about 6 sizes smaller. Unfortunately, in today's world. And she has said, frankly, yes, if I wanted to lose weight, I could. I choose not to go to the gym, but rather I prefer to spend time with my friends or have a glass of wine. I'm not bothered. She's always had lots of male attention and boyfriends who loved her just as she was, and she's never conformed.
She really attributes this to an influence of her mother, just, saying, look, be yourself, and, that's enough. And I think a lot of her fans really found inspiration in not adhering to certain expectations of female pop singers.
She'd rather go and hang out with her mates and have lunch with them than go and hit the gym. And God forbid the guy who she marries ever turning around to her and saying, you're fat. She's actually said she'll murder him.
In some ways, Adele is like the Oprah Winfrey of music. In terms of body image, Oprah was the first woman to get up there with a weight problem and become an international superstar for being glamorous, for being who she was, for being outspoken and unapologetic about the fact that this is who she was. In many ways, in terms of body image, Adele is doing in the pop world what Oprah Winfrey did in the world of journalism and media. She's really groundbreaking. She's knocking down a lot of barriers and like glass ceilings that existed for women who didn't conform to a certain body type.
She has this natural aura then that shines from her, I think. I think it would be a real shame if she did go down that route and lost weight, because then it just wouldn't be Adele.
To date, Adele has proved an incredibly prolific artist, and already her third album is said to be well on its way.
She wants to do her next album where she writes, records, produces, and masters it all herself. This is not a young woman to be trifled with. I think this is an unstoppable force of nature, and she will get what she wants.
At the moment, she really has got what she wants, and she claims to be madly in love with businessman Simon Konecki, a former city trader who now runs Drop for Drop, a charity which delivers water to impoverished countries in the third world. She's also moved to a huge country house in Sussex to be close to him. In 2011, Adele was forced to axe her American tour after being diagnosed with pre-nodules on her throat, a condition that could have brought her glittering career to a bitter end. There were even fears that she would not make it as a star turn at the Grammys.
She's done incredibly well in the nominations, but really first and foremost has got to be her health. And one of the interesting things about what's happened with vocal health now, whether it be Adele or John Mayer or Lionel Richie, there are a number of artists that have had challenges with this. So one of the things that I hope comes out of this is that there'll be more of an awareness about vocal health.
I do wish Adele all the best. She put together an amazing record. I bought it on iTunes. I think Rick Rubin did a great job, and I hope she gets better.
But in November 2011, she was successfully operated on in Boston by the man they call the miracle music doctor, Steven Zeitels.
Adele had indicated that she had been bleeding into her vocal fold. The microsurgery allows one to remove the mass without disturbing the vocal cord. Now that the vocal cords are vibrating much better, it'll be a cleaner sound, she's well healed. I anticipate that she's going to give a wonderful performance.
And in February 2012, Adele made an astonishing comeback from her illness at the Grammys, winning an amazing 6 awards.
Thank you so much. This is ridiculous.
She went on to perform a spectacular rendition of Rolling in the Deep,
We could have had it all,
proving that her voice was back with a vengeance.
but you played it, you played it, you played it, you played it too.
In her acceptance speech, Adele revealed all the pent-up tension and emotion that had been building in the lead-up to the Grammys.
Mum, girl did good. Mum, I love you. I'm so sorry you're not here.
Adele is incredible, and of course Adele's amazing and she's got a voice like an angel, but what I like about Adele the most is that I've been fortunate enough to do shows, TV shows with her, and just speaking to her and talking to her. She's one of the coolest persons I've ever met in this business, and she's so real and down to earth, and she just has this God-given talent and being able to sing like that.
Less than 2 weeks later, she performed the song again. This time she was the toast of the Brit Awards in her native London.
We could have had it all, rolling in the deep.
On the night, she picked up awards for Best Album of the Year and Best British Female Solo Artist.
Nothing makes me prouder, than coming home with 6 Grammys and then coming to the Brits and winning Album of the Year.
During her acceptance speech, a shocked British crowd saw Adele cut short by the awards host, James Corden.
I can't believe I'm about to cut
me off.
I'm so sorry.
Can I just say then, goodbye, and I'll see you next time round, yeah?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Not happy about having her acceptance speech interrupted, she went on to explain why later that night.
I'd like to say I got cut off during my speech for Best Album and I flung the middle finger. But that finger was to the suits of the Brit Awards, not to my fans. I was about to thank the British public for all of their support and they cut me off. So I'm sorry if I offended anyone, but the suits offended me. So thank you very much for all of your support. It's amazing, so thank you very much. Send that everywhere so all the fans see it, so I don't want them thinking I was swearing at them, all right? Thank you very much.
As she proved at the Brit Awards, amazingly, Adele still seems relatively untouched by her newfound global fame.
20 million albums. Those numbers are nuts. How does that feel? 20 million people own your record.
It just goes over my head, really. I can't imagine how many people that is. I still think that when I go, when I was playing at Shepherd's Bush Empire and stuff like that, it's probably that room that owns my record. So it kind of goes straight over my head. I don't really realise it, really. But it's phenomenal, the success of this album and where it's gone and where it's taken me is just amazing. It seems to have done it all on its own as well, I haven't done that much, and then I was halted by my voice problems, but the record just carried on walking without me.
So what does the future hold for Adele?
She's not going to be the pop singer that is relying on her looks, and when her looks fade away, people will not be interested in her anymore. She's relying on things that are classic. She's relying on like soul music and old country music and gospel and like all these traditions that have survived the test of time.
You could see her possibly on the same kind of trajectory as like a Celine Dion, or even like a Mariah Carey, women who are mostly known for the quality of their voice and their singing and the impact that they make, rather than sort of the kind of 360 performance that they put on.
What sets her apart from other worldwide songwriting sensations like Lady Gaga is that there is no gimmick, there is no hype, there is nothing about her that anyone could get tired of or want to move on, because what she's offering is talent, it's great songwriting, and it's art. And the fact that Adele has already shown so much growth and maturity in her first 2 albums, it leads one to only imagine where she's going to go from here.
Her music's not really tied to anything that's contemporary. As long as she stays true to her own artistic vision, I don't see any reason why she won't be talked about as the legacy artist she's always wanted to be, along the lines of like the Etta James, along the lines of Dusty Springfield.
Provided she's able to kind of tap into a certain like sensitivity and emotion, she'll always be able to connect.
And it's not just her professional life that she has mapped out. She says she knows exactly what she wants to be doing in the next decade. And for now, it all seems to be centred around London.
I mean, I'm very British. I don't think you can really get more British than me. And I've always been proud to be British, but being away and my record doing so well overseas really kind of brings that home to me, And I'm very much a London girl, always will be, never going to leave, always going to be in the UK. So I'm incredibly proud, yeah.
She really does seem to know exactly what she wants, and she's ready to take it. Something I find extraordinarily admirable. She said by the time she's 30, she wants to be married, have a baby, at least one, live in a nice 3-bedroom house in Clapham. I mean, with a picket fence. I mean, it's so specific, it's incredible. And yet, from what I've seen, I wouldn't put any of that past her. I think she absolutely has what it takes to make all of that happen. This is a young woman who's estimated to be worth at least £6 million at the age of 23.
She doesn't find it difficult to write about her experiences, and I think as long as she remains true to herself and doesn't let fame overwhelm her and cloud her, then I just think we're going to hear more and more from her.
You could see her like almost being like an Etta James, like a B.B. King. You could see her coming out and just sitting in a chair and just singing, and provided that voice is still there, I think she'll have a long, long career.
We already saw in 19 and 21, at those young ages, we saw such brilliance, emotional brilliance, I would call it. One can only imagine what's ahead of her in the future. But I think Adele's voice, her songwriting ability, her talent, and her, maybe more significantly, her ability to put emotion into music is what's going to keep her, I think, headlining major concerts in the years to come.